You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Locked On Sooners is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Go check out another great Locked On show with the NBA season getting going. Go check out Locked On Thunder with my man Rylan Stiles, the phenomenal Rylan Stiles. Also, go check out Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy to get you ready for all of the SEC action coming up this weekend. Again, big game between Alabama and Tennessee. That's going to be one that's on my to-do list as far as games to watch while I'm doing post-game stuff for Sooners Wire or for here as well. It'll be definitely on in the background, keeping an eye on Kalen DeBoer versus Josh Heupel and Jalen Milroe versus Nico Iamaleava. So the SEC injury report came out, and listen, a lot of the usual suspects for the Oklahoma Sooners. The most important one that we're monitoring here is Deion Burks. Deion Burks was listed as questionable on the initial injury report released by the SEC. So was Cade McIntyre. Surprising additions. Sam Franklin, running back, also kick returner, was listed as questionable, and David Stone, defensive lineman, was listed as probable. So let's talk Deion Burks, man. At this point, it's hard to know when any of these wide receivers are going to come back. I don't know. I don't think they ever really said exactly what the issue was with Deion Burks. They said it was a soft tissue injury. That's so nondescript. It could be any number of things. It could be a hamstring pull. It could be a calf. It could be, who knows exactly. It could be like Quinn Ewers was dealing with an abdominal injury that was like a strain that it's just uncomfortable to try to play with. So that's going to be one of those that's going to be tough, man. If you can't get Deion Burks back, it again puts so much pressure on your young, inexperienced offense to go make plays. Hopefully we can get him back, man, because I think it really would help Michael Hawkins a lot if you can get Deion Burks back. I'm not holding my breath at this point. When a wide receiver suits up of significance for Oklahoma, I say of significance, when a veteran wide receiver suits up for Oklahoma, I'll be as surprised as anybody. I don't like Jalil Farouk. I don't expect to be back until maybe the second bye, just before you play Alabama and LSU, if he comes back at all this season, just because you don't know where you're going to be at with this season. I mean, you're very much staring 6-6 and 5-7 right down the barrel right now. And that's crazy to think. That's crazy to think that Oklahoma is fighting for bowl eligibility coming into the season. We had such higher expectations for this team, for this offense. The defense meeting expectations, maybe a little bit below expectation, but for the most part, meeting expectations. They're a top 30 defense nationally. That's an improvement from where they were a year ago, right? They've improved. So it's just a matter of continuing to improve and then also finding your offense. The offense can't be this bad all year long. Otherwise, you're going to be 5-17. Your only win left is going to be Maine. And that's not going to be acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. I don't care what injuries you dealt with, what inexperience you dealt with, the quarterback change, any of that. For Brent Venables and his staff, 5-7 is not going to be an acceptable outcome from anybody. Like nobody, whether it's Sooner fans, Sooner media, national media, nobody's going to look at Oklahoma going 5-7 and feeling like, yeah, that's cool. We're content with that, given the rash of injuries that Oklahoma dealt with. Nah, that's not going to be at all okay. So they've got to find a way to improve this offense. And again, a guy like Deion Burks could really help. Will he suit up? Brent Venables says he's doing everything he can to try to get out there. He's doing 80% of his volume right now. I know that there's like people out there trying to talk about how he's quitting on the team. He's not out there doing anything. I think that's nonsense. I don't think Brent Venables would talk in the press conference about how he's doing 80% of his volume and trying to get back out there for the game if he wasn't trying to get out there for the game, if he wasn't doing everything he possibly could to be out there for the team. This idea that every player that's injured is just sitting out and quitting on the team, man, that's such nonsense. People deal with injuries, and I don't know what his recovery time is. You don't know what his recovery time is. And I'm not saying that's all Sooner fans, but I see it. I see it in our YouTube comments. I see it on social media. I've heard people say it just out in public, that the new era of the transfer portal is creating this dynamic that nobody wants to play through adversity. I think that's Listen, are there some? Absolutely. Is it a small minority of players, a very, very small fraction of players that are doing that? 100%. For every Bear Alexander that you see out there are 100 more guys that aren't getting the playing time that they want and are just, they're biding their time and they're waiting it out. They're seeing if there's going to be an opportunity. It's like Brent Venables talked about with Jackson Arnold that we covered yesterday in our show that, hey, if Jackson Arnold wants to redshirt, okay, that might be a thing that could happen. But if we need you to play, we need you to play. And given the state of the offense, a guy like Gerald McCoy saying on social media that he'd like to see Jackson Arnold get another start, who's to say that Jackson Arnold couldn't get back into the lineup at some point? I mean, nothing is is off the table. You've got to find a way to improve your offense. And listen, Michael Hawkins has got all the talent in the world. He's got the skills. It's just a matter of now taking what he's got skill wise, translating that to the football field, getting more aggressive and starting to execute the offense at a high level. There's no time like the present. And so listen, yes, there are guys out there. We've seen the reports, whether it's, the Matt Sluka situation at UNLV because he wanted more NIL dollars and UNLV was content with the NIL contract that their collective signed with them and they weren't going to do anything different, whether it's the Bear Alexander situation at USC or the kid from Alabama, the defensive lineman who just isn't getting enough playing time, also been a little bit dinged up. For every one of those situations, there are countless situations where guys maybe aren't happy with their playing time, but they're being good teammates about it. They're doing their work. They're keeping their head up. They're not sulking on the sideline. They're doing everything the right way. And I expect nothing different from a Brent Venables coach team, that guys on the team doing things the right way. And that's Deion Burks included. Deion Burks is that dude, when he plays the game of football, he plays with such a joyful spirit. You see it on his face. Like he's smiling, he's laughing, he's having a good time out there. Early in the season, when things offensively were going well, you could see how good of a time he was. Now, yeah, with wide receivers that can turn on an instant, but he just doesn't seem like one of those guys that gets too high, gets too low. He just seems to have a joyful spirit about him. And so I don't think this is a guy that is purposefully trying to sit out and trying to redshirt. I don't think whether he comes back in 2024 or not, I don't think he's coming back for another year of college football. I think he's going off to the NFL next year, no matter what. He's going to test so well at the NFL Combine. He's going to test well on the speed stuff and the quickness stuff, the agility. He's going to jump out the gym. I mean, for a guy his size, he's going to post some really, 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 really impressive numbers. They're going to have scouts and general managers and head coaches just salivating over his potential in their offense. And so I don't think he's sitting out so that he can have another year of college football eligibility. I think he's dealing with an injury that's keeping him from doing the things that he needs to be able to do on a football field. And so my guess is it has something to do with his legs, because you got to be able to have your legs as a wide receiver. You got to be able to run routes. You got to be able to cut and move quickly. So I think that Deion Burks has a chance. If I'm putting it, I would say right now it's 50-50. If we get to the next injury report and he's now probable, I'll bump that up to 75%. If we stay questionable through the week and he's a game time decision, I'll probably keep it at 50-50. But if we can get to game time decision, hey, that's a better place than what we've been, because he was ruled out for the Texas game before we even got to Saturday. So that'll be what we'll continue to monitor. We'll see where it all stands, where it all lands, but you could definitely use a guy like Deion Burks back in the lineup for your offense. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell and that subscribe button to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow myself on Twitter at John9Williams, my buddy Jay, who will be back for Friday's show at Unfair Sports. Also go check out his channel at Unfair Sports. You can also follow the show on all the social media platforms at Locked On Sooners, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We are there and got you covered with more Sooners content. But until next time, I'm John Williams for my buddy Jay Smith. Boomer Sooner.